There we
Yay.
go.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, but I actually got a really good delivery day the other day. I must have been
Mhm.
one of those. You know how GW send out like certain items a little bit early? Yeah,
Yes.
I got the Astra Militarium Codex really early. It was
Oh.
delivered at the same time as your new book, Adam, Under Stars
Oh.
Desolate. So I got them both, which was
So you got actual 40k and knockoff 40k all at the same time.
that's mean. That's very self-deprecating. This is not knockoff 40K. This is something a bit different from 40K.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very
I
different.
it's very interesting actually. I was reading it earlier. Look, this is Adam's book, by the way, guys. Adam's new book. He's got a new book out. We spoke about the last one. Was it last year, Adam? We did.
Yep, it was last October.
Was it? Was it
Uh,
right?
no, it was earlier than that. It was last summer. It
I was
was
going to
last
say,
August.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
last August, wasn't it?
yep. So the first book was Pig Iron. It was me
Mhm.
learning how to make a book because
Yeah, it's very
I
good as well. It's like it's all of these. What I like about the way you construct books, and you do it in this one as well, actually, is the way you you drip feed like atmosphere.
hmm
It's you don't like give specific details as
nope.
such, and you don't give an overarching, like a concrete overarching mythology you suggest. And
Yes.
that works really well, I think, for this kind of book as well, because this is a bit different, isn't it? I mean, you've got like a whole it's like an RPG. Do you know what it's a bit like? It's a bit like Rogue Trader used to be.
That's exactly what I was trying to do.
It's like
So
an RPG with miniature war game elements to it.
absolutely,
Yeah?
absolutely. Because one of my favorite things about tabletop gaming is the narrative. Once you get into skirmish games, you have every chance to make a narrative, and the
That's
narrative
right.
is always, without fail, I'm going to beat up your guys because of this.
Right, right. And there is a prescriptive if you're playing 40K, for example, or AOS, there
Yeah,
is a prescriptive element to it, isn't it? It's always gonna be like warfare or whatever, and it's always going
yeah.
to be it's very I mean, don't get me wrong, I love those games. I really
Oh,
enjoy those games,
absolutely, yeah.
but they are very prescriptive. They're very rigid. There are ways of playing, and you play in those ways, and those are the rules, right? Well,
Yep.
what I love what you've done with this is you've opened it up in the way of the old, like, when Games Workshop were kind of still feeling their way with things and when everything was still a bit
Yes.
looser and there
hmm
wasn't as much in the way of, right, in this situation, you do this and this is how you solve it. You haven't done that. You've sort of like, it's like reading the old Realms of Chaos books or
Yes.
the Rogue Trader manual or whatever, where everything's a bit more open and it's a bit more left up to the players, to whoever's playing, like, this is how we solve this situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The idea is always going to be, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Here's the playground. Here's the sandpit. Go in
Mhm.
there with your spade and your little castle, and you make whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, because you've
And
actually, you've removed a lot of the how a lot of mainstream role-playing games these days have become a bit more prescriptive, haven't they? They've
yeah,
become a bit more, "Right, let's provide a dice roll for this. Let's provide a rule for this situation." You've removed that, right?
hmm
You've just,
yep,
this is, like, really early D&D, really early it reminds me a bit of, like, the role-playing stuff that was being published in the late '70s, early '80s. So
I do
stuff like,
indeed.
Paranoia,
Yes.
where you have the situation and you have your very broad set of rules, but
hmm
you it depends on how you want to play it, or how your group wants to organize.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned paranoia because paranoia is one of the things I always think about
It's
when
clearly a
we
touchstone
create.
here, right?
Oh, Paranoia. Paranoia is one of my all-time favorite experiences. Every edition of Paranoia is something different, and it could be drinking wacko juice out of a clown shoe, or it could be something a lot more sinister and a lot more intense.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
entirely up
right.
to you.
It can be like a comedy game, it can be really fucking funny.
Oh yeah.
or it can be very sinister and dark and very sort of 1984, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can paranoia lends itself brilliantly to doing whatever you want it to do.
Mhm.
Friend computer can either be absolutely hilarious or deeply sinister,
Yeah.
and that can happen in the same freaking game. You know?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you really sort of got that here as well, haven't you? Because you've done that with the background as well, right? It's
Yep. I mean,
broad enough. I mean, a lot of your again, a lot of the things I like about your storytelling is that it's atmospheric.
oh, thank you.
So it's
It
it's
works.
more
It's
it's
not shit.
vibes, right? It's vibes,
Yes.
and it has for me, it feels a bit like what is it called? There is an add-on. I think it if it's a Cyberpunk, it might be for one of the old Cyberpunk systems. I
Okay.
think it's called the Arcology or something like that, and it's
Oh.
yeah, it's the add-on where you've got, like, this, it's like a sort of utopian society. It's like a big pyramid, and it's
Yep.
separate
Yep.
from the rest of the world, and there's a computer that runs it all, and it's
Hmm.
perfect. It is like everything is perfect. Everything is provided for. The atmosphere is regulated. There are robots that perform everything. Nobody gets sick because there are like nanobots and all this kind of thing. And one day, all communication with it goes down.
Hmm.
Everything goes down. And the book is fantastic. I wish I could remember what it's called, but the book is fantastic because it doesn't tell you what happened.
No,
You just get these
that's the
little
fun.
the really sinister stuff is you get these like there are people online, they're talking online and they're trying to connect with the system to see what's going on. And as they're talking, they're like, I can't access anything. And then one of them accesses like a camera in there. And they're like, I
Hmm.
can't quite see what's happening. And as you're reading, these people are going silent. It's like
Hmm.
whatever's happening is spreading out or getting to them
Mm.
somehow. And one of the things you can infer is that the AI that controls the arcology has gone mad. It's done a showdown, basically. It's done a system shock, yeah? And it's turned everyone inside into, like, these hideous, like, techno-organic cyborg things, and it's
Mhm.
sealed off the arcology from the outside world, and the whole RPG thing is that you're an explorer who goes into the arcology to explore it. This gives
Yeah.
me a very similar vibe where you've got, like it's that sort of grim, dark science fiction horror stuff.
Yes. I mean, I can't write something that isn't dark. It's
Uh-huh.
just part of what happens in my brain.
Mhm.
There's always a bleak humor to a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of bleak humor in here. The Red
Yeah.
Barrels is one of my the Red Barrels is probably my favorite thing I've ever created ever. I love this idea of just this barrel wandering up to you, sitting there, and if you knock on it, it'll give you a gun, and the gun might be a really powerful blaster. It might just shoot bubbles and play a little jaunty tune. It you never know.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like there's a very sort of I mean, there's an influence of 2000 AD here. I mean,
oh, big
obviously,
time.
it's like it does again, like, not just the rules, but the whole vibe of it reminds me of the kind of really wacky experimental stuff that was being done in, like, the '80s, in the early '90s as well, with
Oh
science
yeah,
fiction
yeah.
horror and with RPGs. It's got a it can be funny, but it's gallows. It's
Yes.
really gallows, and I like that a lot, I've gotta say.
I think a lot of my brain is a big mixing pot of influences and
Uh-huh.
ideas. I mean, there's a little streak of Blackadder that runs through this, because Blackadder that's the sense of humor that I grew up on.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
right, right.
Blackadder and Pratchett and Red Dwarf. So there is that little bit of that in there, but there's also a lot of what do I find scary?
Yeah.
There are three things in fiction that I find terrifying: the loss of self,
Mhm.
um, when reality breaks.
Which is
You
a
know,
big theme here, right?
oh yes, and unexplainable. Yeah, when something happens,
Yes.
but it's so far removed from you that you cannot understand it. There is an explanation,
Uh-huh.
but you will never ever be able to understand all the angles of it because it's too big. It's
It's too big,
too
it's
far
too
removed.
complex, right? One
Yeah.
of the things I really like about this setting that you've created here is that when it verges on the occult, You
Mhm.
know, when there's that Lovecraftian stuff coming in, and it's very low key in this book, which I like.
Yes.
It's very low key, but it's there. It's
Mhm.
just around the edges. You could imagine how, like, people who play in this system and in this setting, they could take it to some very strange places indeed.
Absolutely, and it's funny that you mentioned RPGs because one of the things I'm planning to do is write little PDFs that people are going to be able to download, which are going to
Mhm.
be basically adventure paths for
Yeah.
skirmish bands, which, as far as I'm aware, doesn't happen. You get campaign books in Frostgrave and things
Mhm.
like that, but you don't get adventure paths, which are narrative-based skirmish game
Right.
adventures. I've got three of them that I'm currently working on at the moment, so they'll be coming out as PDFs, so people will just be able to download from my site,
Brilliant.
adnicol.com, adnicol.weebly.com. So people just download them. There's going to be more random tables
Uh-huh.
coming in PDFs for people to download them. Eventually, they'll all be condensed into another book down the line. But this is all that you really need
Yeah, we'll have
to
to
play
get a
the game.
game of this going, actually, Adam. That
I would love to.
it
It
would
took,
be very interesting because I like the tone of it. I mean, that again, the thing that comes to me from reading it is just this. There's a feeling, there's a vibe from it all,
Mhm.
and it reminds me a little bit of certain video games that I've played. You know, there seems to be like an influence from video games here. It reminds me of
Yep.
like Amnesia and like Scorn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Do you
that
do
has
you
that
want to know?
Lovecraftian influence.
Do you? This is going to date me so much.
Oh dear.
Do you know what one of the things I was thinking of when page setting? So I never do anything by halves.
Uh,
Um, all of the pages have frames and they
yeah.
have textures, and it's all stuff I've taken photos of and photoshopped and played around with, and in some cases painted over and
Mhm,
messed around with. Some of it's 3D models, which I've then imported into GIMP and then painted over in GIMP to give it a flat texture,
mhm.
um, because I have a sickness and I can't help myself. Uh, but one of the things I was thinking of in order to get the feel of what I wanted across, because when I originally wrote it, I wrote it as a little PDF that people could download from the site.
Mhm.
And it was to teach myself how to write a book because
Right.
I'd never done it before and I wanted to do it. And it would have been much easier to sit and write a novel. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know it
people
wouldn't
have
have been.
no
It would
idea, do they?
no,
Unless you do it, you've no
yeah,
fucking idea. There is so much work involved in even in, like, short stories, there's so much work involved. A
of
novel
course,
is a pain in the
yeah,
arse.
yeah.
Is a pain in the ass.
It's not. It wouldn't have been easier at all. It would have been difficult in different ways. But
Mhm.
I went for learning how to make a large, graphically visual, interesting experience.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I did. I created the original one, which was called the Hive Desolate,
Mhm.
and then I had to change that name because the Necromunda released the Desolate Hive, which was
Ah!
like,
Oh, again, it's that psychic link they've got to
I know,
you, Adam, to
I
you
know.
specifically. Jesus.
There was some serious swear words coming out of me.
Uncanny.
So I had to go back
Bloody
through and had,
uncanny.
but yeah, it was fine because it then changed what I was looking at.
Uh-huh.
So whilst the original PDF has this very, um, it's got a very cold feel to it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
this one, I went warmer. So I started thinking like, what type of visuals do I want?
Mhm.
Hexen, Heretic,
Right.
Quake.
Oh, yeah, I
So
mean,
I went
yes.
back to them.
The sort of 1990s horror first person games, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
can so see. I mean, Quake with, like, the the technological science fiction verging on to
yes,
Lovecraftian occult eldritch gods thing. Yeah,
yes.
definitely, definitely.
So I mined a lot of like Quake stuff and went through like played Quake again.
Oh
Just the
my
first one.
god, the
Um,
first Quake, wow.
I found a version that somebody's up to 4K.
I
It's like
like that
4K
game.
textures.
I
Oh,
know
oh, it's pretty.
I know it's dated these days, but I really like
Yeah,
it. I really
I
like it.
loved it. Loved it. In a way that
Totally
I've never been
dead
able to get
right.
on with Quake 2. Quake 2
Oh,
is a really good game.
yeah, Quake 2 is good, but it doesn't have the it's very straight, isn't it? It's very
Yes.
straight science fiction, you know,
Yeah.
there's nothing wider going on in it, whereas
No.
in the original Quake, you're ultimately dealing with, like, Lovecraftian gods, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the cool things about Quake, and Hexen and, Heretic
Heretic,
is
yeah.
Heretic is one of my all-time favorite games, and I will fight anybody in a car park if they
Complex
disagree with me.
games. I mean, like,
Massive, yeah.
the notion of doing an RPG in that format at that time, it's
I
just
did that.
bonkers.
I
Absolutely freaking bonkers.
somewhere, and I know I've got it somewhere. There is a printout of an RPG that I wrote when I was 16, 17.
Uh-huh.
There is a Quake, Hexen world.
Brilliance.
Right? I'd just taken everything from Quake, everything from Hexen,
Uh-huh.
stat blocked everything from those
Uh-huh.
games, wrote an entire RPG rule set, very, very simple rule set, to be honest with you. Um, and I ran RPGs at my local club.
Wow, I
It
bet
was,
that would have
it,
gone down well. You know, at the
it
time, that would have gone down really well.
I had to stop doing it because I had 21 people trying to play the game at the same time.
But it's funny you
So,
should mention that because, like, that's the vibe. There is like
mhm,
you know, and I mean this in the best way possible. There's a retro feeling to this. There's like
yeah.
like an early 1990s retro feeling to this. You know that where grimdark and cyberpunk were really, really on the in the ascendant.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's it's one of my all-time favorite times for fiction,
Mhm.
and not just in books. I mean, you get stuff like Michael Marshall's Spares coming out
Right.
in the early '90s, which is to me, anyhow, the best cyberpunk book you'll ever read in your
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
It is fucking incredible, and every time I've gone through it once every 2, 3 years, something like that, and I get to about two-thirds through the book, and my stomach lurches because I
Yeah.
know what's coming.
Yeah.
And I don't every time I go through it, it gets a little harder each time because I know what's coming,
Uh-huh.
and as I get older, I don't know if I can handle it.
Yeah, it's funny that how that happened, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
you'd
The
think
last
it would
time
be like the opposite way, wouldn't you? If you you know, the more you read, the more you experience, you'd think that you'd become more
no.
hardened to this stuff. It doesn't
Oh, yeah.
happen that way. It doesn't happen
No.
that way. Uh,
I mean,
you know,
it kicks the living hell out of you, and the
yeah.
more life experience you've got, the more that resonates, and it
Mhm.
I wish it was something as simple as, "Oh, the main character dies." It's not. It is
Yeah.
you are having to deal with the death of friendship. You are having to deal
Mhm.
with, yeah, all the unspoken emotions that you have for the people around you
Yeah.
having to be destroyed
Like
and let go in order to let other people live. It's
yeah.
just,
Like very real stuff, right? Like emotionally
yeah,
real stuff, which a lot of fiction in all formats kind of shies away from for fear
yeah.
of alienating its audience, right?
And it's why Michael Marshall Smith stopped writing his cyberpunk stuff and
Mhm.
became Michael Smith and wrote
Yeah.
more technological thrillers because
Yeah.
they sold better,
Yeah.
which is a
Right.
real shame because Spares Only Forward and One of Us, they are absolutely incredible books that do not get the love that they deserve.
It's a tale as old as time, to be honest. The
Yeah,
really difficult stuff very often doesn't sell very well
hmm,
until later on when it garners status, you know? I
yeah,
always think
yeah,
of, like, stuff like Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy, you
hmm,
know, which ended
yeah,
his career as a novelist because it was absolutely spat upon, it was despised,
yeah,
absolutely freaking despised, um, but has obviously since become regarded as one of the great works of English literature, which it is, which it
absolutely.
absolutely is, you know?
I mean, one of the great things about the downfall of Neil Gaiman, if there's
Oh,
anything good to be
wow.
taken from it,
Yeah.
is that certain people that he wholesale stole ideas from
Yeah,
have
Kenneth
come to
Lee, yeah,
light. Yeah, exactly. They've come to light, and their work is now getting reappraised and
yeah,
you know, reshown, and that's
yeah, but
brilliant, lovely.
if there's any, like, anything good to be clawed from that
Yes,
wholly execrable situation, that is it. Go and read Tanith Lee, guys.
agreed.
You
Yeah.
really should. You really should, quite
The funny
frankly.
thing is, I came across Tanith Lee about 6 months ago purely by accident.
Mhm.
So I ordered a couple of
Mm.
books, and they took a while because I ordered them from Abe Books, so they were
Mhm,
shipped in from America. So it took a while
mhm,
for them to get here, which is fine because it still only costs us like 3 or 4 quid per book. That's
mhm.
yeah, brilliant. I love Abe. It's granted they think I'm a bookshop, which is why I get it cheaper, but that's fine. Uh,
Fair enough.
so yeah, we won't get too deep into the weeds on that one. I think. Um, and so they arrived. On the day that they arrived, all the stuff starts turning up on social media about Chandler.
Of
I'm
course it
like,
does, yeah. I mean,
okay,
it's
fair enough.
I encountered Tanith a long time ago, and it was through other sort of obscure, queer, unusual 1990 because I was obviously that's my milieu, right? That's my stuff.
Yes,
It
yeah.
was after I discovered, Billy Martin, aka Poppy Z. Bright.
Oh
Um,
yes.
Billy put together these 2 collections of vampire erotica. Um
Hmm.
Love in Vain, and I can't remember the other one. There's 2 just genuinely fantastic
Love in
collections.
Vain is an
Yeah.
amazing
Isn't it? It's
title, and
great, isn't it? It's absolutely brilliant, right?
I haven't thought of that.
Um,
Damn it.
and Tanith, there's a couple of stories by Tanith in though, and they are some of the best vampire fiction I've ever read. I
Funnily
mean,
enough,
like, just gorgeous. I mean,
yeah,
like, annoyingly good,
yeah,
frustratingly, annoyingly good.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny actually that the reason I came across Talonflea was um, there was a list of authors who are better than oh god, I forgot the name. Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, Anne Rice.
Anne Rice. Yeah. Do you find Anne Rice to be irritating? Yes. Here is a list of authors you might enjoy. Excellent.
Well, I think, like, for a little while anyway, Nosferatu has put paid to the sexy vampire. For a little while. For a
Good.
little while.
Good. Thing is, I don't even care about the sexy vampire stuff. It's the fact that Anne Rice spent a paragraph and a half describing a wardrobe when Lestat was trying to eat someone. That, nah, nah. The only
Uh,
book I'm on my soapbox now. The only good book that she wrote was Memnoch the Devil, and that was the stuff that was happening in the background of that
that was the
book, not the
background, yes.
yeah, not the A plot. The background was fascinating.
Brilliant. But no, this is a
Uh,
good read, Adam. It's really it's
Thank you.
got like I said, it's got that thing that I look for, which is that slightly dirty, grimy, dystopian feeling, and it feels like it's a world on the edge,
Hmm.
you know? Like it could collapse at any time and not just like fall apart, but in a Lovecraftian way.
Oh
So
yes.
like stuff could erupt into it, Like
One of the
reality could
things.
break down at this
Oh,
point.
I have a 27-page document that is completely blow by blow everything that's happened from the beginning leading up to
Mhm,
the collapse, the downfall, and everything
mhm.
that's going to happen afterwards.
Right, right. So there is
What I
like
will do
a
with that? Oh, I've got it. It's all there. I know exactly
brilliant.
what's going on. Um, One of the things that I've always loved about 90s video games, Quake, Hex and
Mhm.
Heretic, Doom, um, is that they were limited in how they could tell a story.
Yeah, I mean, very limited, right? They had to
Yeah.
rely on things like implication, like visual
Yes, exactly.
storytelling, environmental storytelling. Atmosphere was king, right?
Yes. And
Atmosphere
that's
was absolutely king.
absolutely yes. And that's exactly what I was pinpointed on because that to me is fascinating.
Yeah, I like that. I must admit that's my style of storytelling too. I mean, as you probably know, that's
Oh, yes,
kind
over
of
there.
it's kind
Oh,
of
your
what I
books are
go
over
for,
here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I like to read, and it's what not a lot of people do. It's interesting.
No.
It's one of those things where it's very kind of niche. You're going for a very particular kind of audience and a particular kind of reader. Because
Hmm.
certainly, some of the more negative feedback I get for my fiction is it's too vague or it's not specific enough, which I don't
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. I do not like storytelling that does that, actually, where it's like the "and then" style of storytelling,
Yeah.
the J.K. Rowling style, where it's, "And this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this
I was
happened."
being good and not intoning her name.
Yeah, I know, I should've. Don't worry, I won't say it, like, 5 times or anything, so I won't summon her or anything like that, you know?
Uh, she she'll turn up and judge you think you're like a
Yeah, she'll
guacamole
berate
when
me,
you're old.
she'll ask what gender I am, won't she? She'll ask, that's what she'll do.
Start sniffing your walls looking for the black mold that she feeds on.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
But no, there's a time and a place for a story to dot all the i's and cross all the
Yeah,
t's.
absolutely. I mean, I don't want to come across as too myopic here, but I am, I'm open to all sorts of different styles of stories. When that's
Absolutely.
done well, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some storytellers who are so fucking elegant with that.
yeah.
It's unreal. It really is unreal.
I
Um,
mean, you take someone like China Miéville,
yep,
who
yep,
I think is the greatest working fantasy author of
mhm,
today.
mhm,
I don't think anyone comes close, and it just pisses me off that he's kind of moved away from writing in this world he created, the new Crobazon setting, because
mhm.
fuck me, the stuff that comes out of those books are incredible. You know, oh no, no, I'm in golems. That's what I do as a living. All right, okay, yeah, yeah. What are you going to do at the end of the book? Oh, I'm just going to create a golem out of time, and I'm going to stop everybody, and that way nobody dies, but they're all frozen in time. Yeah,
Because why not, right?
because that is his way of thinking. How
Yeah.
can I take this to the next level, to the next level, to the next
Mhm.
level? And it's all logical. And it is that dotting the I's, crossing the T's. Everything gets explained
Yeah.
as it goes along.
And it
And that
works. It
it's
does
beautiful.
work,
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a thread patchwork of ideas and they
Mhm.
all meld together and it is gorgeous.
Susanna
The
Clarke does
concepts,
this as well,
yes.
the writer of, the case of, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Yeah. Uh,
Absolutely does exactly that, where
the concepts in those books, in the Jonathan Strange books, they're like the T-1000 at the end of Terminator 2.
mhm,
They're all completely all over the place, but then it all starts to warm up and
yeah,
it all melds
they
together into a
all
solid whole.
it's I mean, the expanse of the imagination, the detail
Yeah.
is unbelievable. She creates, like, an entire alternative history for the UK
Hmm.
effectively, where magic is real and there are fairies and there are wizards and whatnot, and it's very, very detailed. As
Yeah.
in, like, her footnotes put Lovecrafts to shame, right?
I was going to say, like, you get people like Kim Newman as well, who,
Yes,
yeah,
the Anno Dracula series.
yeah. I would love to just sit down with Kim Newman for an
Mhm.
hour and just try to work out how his brain
He's a
fits all this stuff together.
he's a very interesting man. I mean, I could
Yes.
sort of, like, introduce you on Facebook if you want, on the Messenger. He's a very interesting man. He,
I would
um
kind of like that
He's
just
very
because.
I mean, there is nobody in the world, I would say, who knows more about horror media than Kim
No,
Newman.
no.
He is so erudite in that area. It's like there is no one else. There's
No,
likely no one on earth who knows more than he does.
no, no.
Um, and I will always go to bat for him because he was uh, one him and Mark Kermode actually were two of
Mhm.
the only critics who went to bat for Stephen Volk's Ghostwatch in 1992. Like,
Really?
everyone else didn't understand what they were trying to do. They didn't understand it. They so it was savaged, it was absolutely savaged.
Yeah.
Newman got it immediately, as did Mark Kermode,
I
Newman
always
got
find
it.
that such a
I know,
bizarre thing that
because
people didn't go along with the ride.
it's
That
a
suspension of
sublime
disbelief.
right,
Yeah.
it's a sublime piece of genius.
Oh,
Volk's
yeah.
Ghostwatch. It's sublimely brilliant. And I mean, I said this to Stephen himself at one point. It wasn't. How people say the reason they took against it is because they scared them. That's bullshit. That's
Yeah.
absolute bullshit. Did it scare them? Yeah, probably. But that's not why they reacted the way they did. They don't even realize why they reacted the way they did. The reason they reacted so negatively is not because they were scared. It's because it dared to call into question their relationship to the bloody television and the
Hmm.
media. It lied to them, right? And that was the whole
Yes.
project. That was what they did. That's what they set out to do. That was the project of the show. They wanted to show you how things that you're presented with in media are not necessarily trustworthy. Even
Hmm.
when you are told this is a documentary, this is live, this is something that's happening before your eyes, it's not necessarily so. And that was the
No.
entire thesis of the project. And because of that, because it called into question their relationship to the media they're supposed to trust, they didn't like it. They didn't like it. So aren't the BBC lying to them, right?
It's
That's what it
crazy, isn't it?
was.
That, especially when you think about where
Oh,
media like that
oh,
went,
yeah,
10
where
years
we are
later.
now.
Yeah. I mean,
Jesus
that
Christ,
was what,
right?
93?
92?
92.
Yeah,
So
it was
yeah,
92.
2002.
Mm,
2002, that's the beginning of Big Brother. That's the beginning of all the reality TV shows
mhm,
all kicking off. Yeah, I mean,
mhm.
you know, 10 years after Ghostwatch, no lessons were learned because that bullshit then became more cemented.
Well, we had
And that,
Most Haunted, didn't we? And
oh,
if anything, Ghostwatch should have put paid to shows like Most Haunted. It should have made it impossible for that kind of thing to occur, right?
George, Most Haunted should have put paid to Most Haunted because Most
Yes, true.
Haunted has proven without any shadow of a doubt there is no such things as ghosts.
Yeah, hasn't it
And
just?
it pisses me off that
Hasn't it just, you
that
know?
little bit of element of mystery in the
Mm,
world around us has been completely and utterly destroyed
mhm.
because of Derek fucking Okora.
Yeah,
Because every by writ of sheer circumstance and chance, they should have had something,
yeah.
anything.
Just
But
just by, yeah, random
yeah,
chance, they should have had something. But no, not a goddamn
no,
thing.
all of it was bullshit. Oh, I wish Derek Okora was still alive so I could kill him.
Yeah, right, right. I mean, like, s nothing
That was
laudable.
that was a joke, lawyers. That was a
Yeah,
joke.
by the way, yeah. Um, but I mean, a life that's totally without merit,
Yeah,
like, totally without
completely
merit,
utterly.
entirely corrosive and evil,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, just a horrible human being in a horrible place doing horrible things.
Doing
It's
horrible,
just
horrible things. But
ugh.
yeah, I really enjoyed reading this, Adam. It's a good book to just have. You know, it's a nice
Oh,
piece of
thank you.
work, and to sort of what I like about it is I do this with a lot of like RPG style books. I do this with the Games Workshop stuff as well. I don't read them like from left to right. I kind
Hmm.
of flick through and I get vibes from them. So I read bits and then over time I'll read the whole thing and put it together in my head. That's the way I've always done it. And this is a great book for that style
Aye,
because
thank
each
you.
page is kind of its own thing, right?
Yep.
All of the little bits and pieces, the little scraps of narrative, the little explanations of things, they exist kind of in their own space.
The idea I had going into it was that any information that you would have as a person in this world who has arrived on this planet, who has entered this giant vertical city, that
Mm.
this mystery has happened. I suppose it's really trying to explain what the premise is, shouldn't I? I'll go back to that and then I'll go into this
Yeah.
because otherwise it won't make sense.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the idea is that there is a giant vertical city, which these things get dropped from space into the Earth's into the crust of a planet,
Mhm, mhm.
where it then seeds itself in. Uh, Work is done, self-replicating work is done, and this thing becomes a fully functional city within weeks.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
terraforming thing almost, yeah.
it's speedy terraforming,
Yeah.
and if anybody out there can get what I'm going for with that, you're doing a good job because that's
Mhm.
probably the least subtle bit of emotional and environmental messaging that I've got in there.
Right,
Because
right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, cultural relevance? Yeah.
yeah, just a little bit.
Just a
Yeah,
little bit, yeah.
there's a lot of that in here. You might notice.
There's no, like, ketamine wankers with chainsaws, are there?
Maybe in one of the later books. Well, let's say that I do have a picture of a guy in here with a big chainsaw,
You
and he's got
do,
very wide
you
eyes.
do. It's not
So
it's yeah. It's got a bit more dignity than the person I'm thinking about, though.
Yeah, a little
Bit
bit,
more
a little bit.
poetry to them, you know?
Yeah, it's a. But anyhow,
Yeah.
so Croatan, which once again, that's a reference. So
Mhm.
enjoy finding that one. Um, I, I'm a big fan of history and I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of historical
clearly.
mysteries, so all that stuff gets wrapped up in this as well.
Yeah.
Croatan is this big vertical city, and in what's known as the Dead Hour, every single person, millions of people, vanished. They
Mhm.
were all there, and then nothing,
And
gone.
suddenly they were not.
Yeah, completely gone. So everything went into free fall, systems started failing, and over the next couple of hours, the big vertical city died. It's
Mhm.
dead. By the time people got to it, it was completely shut down. So barest amount of power. So people are now going in to try and work out what's happening, and around it, this entire uh, economy has grown. So you've got this entire town that's now built around the bottom, which is there just to sell things and to
Mhm.
buy things from the people who go in.
Yeah.
You've got these weird monks that are sitting there with the ledger of the dead names, and they record every name of every person that goes in, and
Mhm.
they'll record if you come back out or if you don't. So people know that you died in there, or worse. Um, there's all sorts of things. There's this entire world has built at the bottom of this thing, and people going in and they are trying to find out what's happened. And one of the reasons I wrote the book in the way that I did is that you, as a person going in, are going to have a very limited amount of information about what you are going to find.
Yeah, so it's not
Yeah.
the situation where the book gives you what is happening or what
No.
happened. Your games master is gonna have to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
If they
Absolutely.
want to. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's part of what they actually do give you, 'cause obviously, I mean, that's where the Lovecraftian element comes in, right? It's that
Hmm.
mystery, it's the unknown, and that's what
Yes.
makes it scary. That's what
Oh.
makes it very, very frightening. What did happen here?
Yes.
And
I know.
why was it so sudden, you know?
Yeah. So I've got two questions for you. One, do you have a theory about what happened? And two, have you picked up on any of the code?
I noticed the code, but I haven't been able to decode it.
No, I've not made it easy. I'll admit I have
No,
not made it
I
easy.
noticed it because there's a whole page of it, you know, there is a
Yeah.
whole page of the code, but I couldn't figure it out.
So there is a cipher. The
Mhm.
cipher will be in one of the PDFs,
Okay, interesting.
but I have written it in such a way that if you can follow um, World War II era code breaking mentalities, um,
Oh,
policies, and ideas, you will be able to break it
interesting.
by use of repeated letters and all that
Interesting.
type of thing, using the letters that would be the most used in any paragraph,
Mhm.
which would be the letter E. You can
You
pick
can
out which
sort of
letter it
work
is.
out yeah, you can
Yeah,
work outwards from that, yeah?
you can work back from it, um,
Interesting.
and
Let
that
me
will give you, if you manage to work it out, it will give you a very large clue into what's been going on.
ooh,
It's not easy.
interesting. Yeah.
I spent 3 weeks working on just that page,
Brilliance. Absolute brilliance.
like literally sitting there with the Enigma engine ciphers and
Mhm.
working it out, and then changing every part of that code into one of these symbols.
Funny.
So
Brilliant stuff.
I have a
Absolute
problem.
brilliance.
I have a sickness.
But no, I like it. I like that essential mystery, and the fact that you can I mean, even if you do have, like, a set answer, at this point, because nobody knows what it is, they you can
Hmm.
sort of do what you like with it, right?
Absolutely,
It's open
absolutely.
enough that you can sort of make it up yourself, yeah?
Yeah.
Or your
There's
games master can or whatever.
there's 800 floors, and each floor is the size of Manchester.
Right, so the
So
potential is basically infinite.
yeah, you can do whatever you want in that. You can create. I've given you um, a lot of the weird stuff like the cold
Mm.
core, which
Yeah.
I have some short stories that
Mhm.
one of my plans is I'm going to release a collection of short stories set in this world.
So,
Um,
it's ripe for it, I've got to say. It is absolutely ripe for storytelling. That's what's so
uh,
good
the,
about it, right?
there might be conversations that me and you are going to have down the line
Yeah,
because.
I would be up for writing something in this universe because I think it would be really fun.
Mhm.
Really, really fun to muck about with. I mean, because of the nature of the setting, you get in your head images of, like, dead ecological sectors, yeah?
Mhm. Yep.
Places where like a hydroponics deck where stuff has
Yeah.
gone mental, like evolution has taken over and stuff has gone mental, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, there's an entire I think it's just a little throwaway passage about how there's all this genetically altered material
Mm.
that people were testing and things, but because there's nobody there anymore, it
Mm.
should have died,
Yeah,
but
it
it
should.
hasn't, and now there's an actual jungle.
Yeah, right.
There's things in the jungle.
Interesting.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's I'm thinking that at some point I'm going to write a Venex Guild PDF, which is going to just be um, people reporting stuff back to the Venex Guild.
Mhm.
The Venex Guild are the um, investigators, for want of a better
Yeah.
term. They're the official investigators who are called in to make judgments on anything from planetary governors right the way down
Mhm.
to, um, there's something's not quite right about how this world is working. Oh, that's
I
because.
I I get the impression from reading about the Venex Guild that their standards and procedures are very quickly going to collapse when they come to apply them to this place. It's
Oh,
not
you
going
have
to go
no
well for
idea.
them, is it? It's not gonna go well for them, is it?
No, no. And I've left hints. I've given big hints into what's going on and
Mhm.
what's happened. It's all in there.
Yeah.
Um, but I just haven't come out and said this is what's happened because
Mhm.
where's the fun in that?
Where's the fun,
You
right?
know.
Yeah, absolutely. The fun is it's the resonance, isn't it, you know? And
Hmm.
it walks that very fine line where you give just enough to sort of pique curiosity, and
Yeah.
then you just
No.
leave people to imagine and to wonder, yeah?
I mean, I chopped out a fair chunk of stuff because I thought that's too
It's
much.
too much, too
That
on the nose, yeah?
Yeah, there's too much information there. Um, it's funny actually because in the very back,
Mhm.
I will have to actually ask you: does your printing have the tables readable, or is it one of the misprints?
Some
Because
of them, actually, the tables are very difficult to read. I think I've got one of the
yes,
misprints, unfortunately.
yeah, the first 24 hours of print, there was a misprint. That's now
Ah,
been fixed.
that's
Um,
yeah, because I got it right away. I got it as, like, the minute it came out.
yeah, I was not happy about that because in the
It's alright.
PDF they're fine.
Ah,
But yeah,
I
once
bet
it
this
once
taught
it,
you a lot, didn't it, Adam? Like,
it did.
just, like, functionally, technically, how to, because it's very well laid out, you know, there's a lot of there's a lot of, like, complex page layout here
Oh yeah,
with the
yeah.
text and the textures and the borders and the pictures and, you know, the little inserts and things. I mean, it must have taken a while to do this.
I've been working on this since Pig Iron came out.
So, a year. Yeah, a
Yeah,
whole year, basically.
yeah. It's taken a lot of work, a lot of time, and that's been like taking my son to school, coming home from school,
Mhm.
working on it, realizing that I better hurry up because otherwise I'm not going to be able to pick up my son from school.
Yes.
That's the kind of time it's taken because it is a very complex thing to put together. And
Yeah.
I was being facetious before when I said it would have been easier to write a novel. It wouldn't have been at all.
No, it wouldn't, no, because this is like a it's multimedia by its very nature,
Yeah,
isn't it, you know? It's
yeah,
writing, it's artwork, it's visual stuff, and then, of course, you've got the 2 halves. You've got the narrative half, and you've got the crunch, right? You've got the actual rules
yes,
part, um,
yes. I
which
was
again
lucky with that I was able to bounce off the Planet 28 system.
yeah.
Mammoth Games were kind enough to let me run with that,
Oh, that's
so
very cool.
that's been taken, adapted, and played with. So
Yeah,
um,
just very, very cool indeed. It's a nice
and
system,
that's
actually, because, as I say, it's nice and
yeah,
loose.
it
It's not
is, it
quite
is.
as prescriptive as a lot of stuff is these days.
No, no, I chopped a lot out of that rule set in
Yeah,
order to.
yeah.
But
I mean,
funnily
like
enough, what I was looking at was Confrontation, if you remember
mhm,
that, as a rule set, because
mhm,
Confrontation was released in 3 issues of White Dwarf,
mhm,
and it's a very loose, very it's a very fluffy rule set, and I
Yeah,
wanted that. I didn't want Kill Team. I didn't want Necromunda.
right.
I wanted something that you could do whatever with.
Yeah, it's a little bit more free flowing, a little bit more sort of RPG-ish, as opposed to like,
Hmm.
right, it's my turn now. I need to roll this dice, blah blah blah. Blah. I need to move like this
Yeah,
amount of inches, blah 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 blah.
it's why I built the entire AI system into it. I
Mhm,
say
mhm.
AI. It's not AI. But it's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, yeah.
Where
By the way, guys, we're not talking about the fucking plagiarism machines.
no, no, no.
When Adam says AI, he means that there's a system where you can play one player. You can play the
Yes.
RPG one player, where you can create like posing. You can create an opposing force, effectively, an opposing team,
Yep.
and
Yeah. So
they can. There's a system in the book to get them to react.
yep.
Basically,
Yep.
that's what he
Yeah, I realize that's probably a better way of putting that. But that also gets used in the Wandering Monsters.
means.
So there's this entire
Yes.
system in there for you're in the middle of a battle, then all of a sudden a horde of zombies is just going to
Mm.
wander up,
So
and you're
the
just
old
like,
sort of Hero Quest thing or Space
yes,
Crusade, yeah, the wandering monster.
yep,
Brilliant.
absolutely. All this stuff is just a culmination of all this stuff that's been in my brain for 20, 30 years,
The
and
yeah,
it's
I mean, and that's its strength, actually. You can sort of see the influences, you can sort of see where you're coming from.
mhm,
And it's a nice, like not only is it a nice sort of culmination of all those things, but it's this really interesting, like, throwback to the '90s, you know?
yeah,
And to the
yeah,
stuff that was happening in that fiction back then, which is really it's much less I suppose it's much less commercial, isn't it? It's much less sort of prescribed. It's a lot less
oh
corporate
yeah,
because, of course, you are just you. It's just you, yeah?
yeah.
It's a
This is
creator. It's a
this
pure
is
creative
just me.
vision,
It's just me
yeah?
put a pipe to my brain and going,
Yeah,
here you go. Here's all
and
my
that
stuff.
I mean, it lends it a certain purity. It really does because there's no one
Mhm.
getting in the way. There's no one telling you,
No,
like, this needs to be like this, or this needs to be toned down, or needs to be simplified, or whatever.
no, absolutely, absolutely. And I don't think I'll ever be able to work in like a corporate atmosphere. That's
Mhm.
just not something I would ever be able to do. The entire idea of well, we need to have this many words written by this time. And so
Right.
yeah, I could do that, or I could spend weeks agonizing over a single paragraph in order to get the
Yeah.
feel right because I want this
Mhm.
paragraph to conjure up images of a certain part of a game that I
Yeah.
played in 1993,
Yeah.
or yeah, I want the feeling that I felt when I was watching Event Horizon for the first time.
Yeah, right. That's a good touchstone, actually, Event Horizon. You know, you mentioned video games, you mentioned Quake
Mhm.
Heretic and Hexen, but like, films like Event Horizon it's a really good touchstone for this.
Yeah, Event Horizon, The Thing,
The Thing,
um,
obviously, yeah.
Mouth of Madness. Weirdly enough,
Yes,
uh,
there's
this.
an element of In the Mouth of Madness here.
Oh, you have no idea.
Oh, is there gonna be
Uh,
a Sutter Kane moment?
no,
No,
no, it's not as
it's not quite as simple as that.
no, no, it's not. See, it's weird. There's a part of me that wants to kind of explain my thought process
Mhm.
in what happened, but on the other hand, I'm not going to because
No, 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 no,
I'm going
let
to
us
leave that.
figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
and for the supplements, yeah?
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, my idea is to do three of these,
Mhm.
and the third one will kind of, sort of answer it,
Yeah,
uh, but leave it answered in a open-ended way where there is still games to be played.
of course, of
Yeah.
course. Brilliant.
I don't intend to just bring the
Like,
shutter down and go,
yeah,
it's done.
this
Yeah.
is the end of this situation, yeah?
No. No. I mean, this is the start of a universe in flux.
It's
I
the
think it's probably
kind
the
of
best.
setting where you don't have to do that as well. I mean, because it's
Mhm.
so vast and so big, you know? And we're talking, like, in terms of time as well, this setting could exist for eons
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
evolve and change and transform and so on. There could be, like, tectonic shifts on the planet, and
Hmm.
it could I mean, you could even have stuff like the stuff in the hydroponics deck spilling out and forming new ecosystems, and oh
Oh
my
yeah.
god, craziness.
Yeah,
Craziness.
I think at some point I'll I'll tell you my thought process, but
Mhm.
I won't say it for other people to hear. Yeah, buy my book. Uh,
Yeah, exactly, right? Buy the book.
buy my book. Yeah, there is a core which is very much a. I think the best way to describe it is if we're going to look at movies, it would start with Prince of Darkness,
Mhm.
and it would end with In the Mouth of Madness.
Okay, interesting. And I mean,
That
I was
that's the
getting
time period of filmmaking that would
right.
with
So it's
little
about
bits
10
like
years. It's about 10
yeah,
years. It's that decade. It's like, you know, Prince of Darkness is a film about the late 1980s,
hmm
and In the Mouth of Madness is very much a film about the mid to late 1990s, yeah?
yes, yeah. There's
Interesting.
other elements as well, like Event Horizon,
Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch
I
Project.
mean, the
That's a
Blair Witch I
very
mean,
good shout.
there's
Yeah.
that we were forced to enter, we were forced to consider such things as fame and glory. We were forced to consider ourselves better than the fools that came
hmm
before. We were fools and we will die here. I mean, that's like it's like it's a bit like that soliloquy to camera at the end of the Blair Witch Project, you know, "We're gonna
It
die out here."
is. It is. It's also my little rallying call, for want of a better term. Be- I know that there might be people out there in the world who go, "Oh God, he's being political,"
Mhm,
but my rallying call is that every generation has that moment where they think that they are better than the generation that came before,
mhm, mhm.
and they are often proven correct or incorrect. Or however, it
Yeah.
depends on how you measure such things. But the
Mhm.
idea of we thought we were better than the fools who came before,
Right.
because that is a thing that happens in every generation. You
Mhm,
always look to the people behind you as being old and foolish and
mhm.
stupid. And, no, we're the new generation. Whoa. But then you get ground down by the world around you and
Uh-huh.
come to realize, eh. But then there's also other stuff in here which is more barbed and pointed at things
Mhm.
that were happening. Annoyingly, this book's actually out of date for a lot of things because so
Yeah.
much has happened since I
I was
started
gonna
writing
say,
it.
right. I'm starting to towards, you know, if I could get a ship to this dystopia, I'd be going. You know?
Oh,
I'd be like, "You know what?
absolutely.
I'll take my chances. I'll take my
Yeah.
chances here." You know?
Yeah. If you were lucky enough, you might find this weird bar that nobody knows who built, and this like strange drone thing will start singing at a ear-bursting volume and following you
I'd
around and shooting at things.
fine. I could take that, you know? At the moment, I'm at that
hmm
point where I could sort of, yeah, it's fine. It's all good. Give me
Yeah.
the give me the Lovecraftian apocalypse, man. I'd rip open the fucking way for them, you know? It's like,
hmm
yeah, summon them. Why not? Let Great Cthulhu wake. Why not? Why not at this point?
Well, it's
Open the fucking lament configuration, you know? At least you're gonna have some fun at some point.
for a little while at least. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
that's the thing. If you were living in this world, you don't actually have to go in. You could make yourself a little fortune in being
mhm,
part of the community of people who built up around it.
you could. You don't necessarily have to, like, you know, risk not only body, but it seems soul as well. You know,
hmm
soul and sanity in this place.
I mean, my plan for the second part of this is there are four other of these giant vertical cities on this
Oh, there
world,
are
right?
others.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So if I go to the very beginning, get my reading voice on.
Yeah.
Um, Eremus is a world of inhuman architecture, three major mega hubs that spear the sky with their spires, and six lesser arcologies that fill the four continents. All are connected by roads and skyways with looping rails on which transports pass between the hives over the long days and longer nights that Eremus's solar rotation brings. That is, all but one. The
Ah,
inhabitants of the megahubs Majoris, Sedna, Talabak continue their cramped bustle and crowded lives as would be expected, whilst the minor arcologies must trade, build, pollute, and produce just as they always have. So all of those things are there,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
So there's only this one that's shut down.
Right,
I
so
think,
there's, like, cultures and things to
yeah,
explore here, and you could I mean, like, you can have, like, whatever's going on here sort of spilling out or, you
it's gonna
know?
spill. It's gonna spill. I'm going to have the second book just as a little idea.
Mhm.
Um, one of the concepts I've got for the second book is that every other one of them goes.
Oh, so what
That there's
it
just
is, it's
yeah,
catching, yeah?
but it's not one at a
Oh
time.
dear.
It's all of them
All of them at once,
go.
yeah?
Yeah,
Oh dear.
everything goes, and it's the panic,
Ah,
the horror of what the shit just
yeah.
happened.
So presumably there are people, like, on other worlds and whatnot who are aware of this, like, they
Oh
know,
yeah,
like, communication stops, yeah?
yeah,
And they're
yeah,
like, "What the fuck?" You know? And
yeah.
presumably, I mean, being the settings they are, there would be entire economies based
hmm
around these cities, yeah?
Oh yes,
So those would stop
oh yes,
too. Those would
yep.
stop too.
Well, it says there they build and produce and pollute
Mm.
as just as they always have. So all of a sudden it stops.
So the effects of this ripple out, yeah,
Yeah.
across, like, entire
Mm,
civilizations. That's very interesting. That's
I'm going to
very
give you
interesting.
a little hint on something, and it's not a big hint. I'm just going to find the right bit.
Mm,
There is a little story in here. Here it is, and it's a Venetat, Solomon Hain, talking to Hothrindia, who is an alien, a smitten.
mm.
And there's a little hint in there. I'm not going to tell you exactly where the hint is, but there's a little hint in there of
Oh, yes, yeah.
why and what. And you might think to yourself, "Oh, right, it's
Mhm.
everything's going to go all system shock," and oh no, it's much more, much grubblier than that.
Oh,
So
okay.
there are hints in there of what's going on, and I'm
Mm,
not going to get any more than that.
very int I like it. I like the way it's set up. I really like the way it's set up. It's like, it'd be very good as a video game.
Yes,
It
yeah.
would be
Once again,
very good as a video game setting. This is the kind of thing where if I saw this as a video game, yeah, it'd be my jam.
no, I'm not saying that. I'm hoping that someone somewhere pays me a large amount of money to
Yeah.
license this and run off with it as a video game. But that would be nice.
You wanna go
Uh,
to the indie sector, really, to be honest,
yeah,
at this point.
absolutely.
You do I know a couple of people who got involved with they were lucky enough, to get involved with, like, major studios recently as writers and whatnot, and
That's cool. Yeah.
it's not. It's their projects they were working on, they spent, like apparently the company spent, like, literally millions of dollars on these projects, and they just stopped 'cause it just
Oh,
you know? It's a
that's,
bad scene. The mainstream video game industry is a bad scene at the
well,
moment.
I make the joke of if somebody wants to pay me a large amount of money to make a game out of it. The reality is, if you know a big studio came and did say, the answer is
Eh,
going to be no.
they
If five
would
guys from Bristol came to me and said,
yeah.
we can't really afford to pay you, but we'd like to do something with it and you'll get royalties, the
Who
answer would
would
be
be good?
absolutely yes.
I'm trying to think of one of, like, the kitchen sink studios who'd be really good at something like this. I'm thinking they're not necessarily a kitchen sink studio, they're actually really big names, but they do, like, low budget stuff. It's those people they were originally Looking Glass, who did System
Mm,
Shock, and then they went on to become is it Irrational Games when they did BioShock?
something like yeah, yeah, yeah,
And now they're kind of it's Ken Levine and they're sort of
yeah, yeah.
scattered around now. They're in, like, various different places. But if you could get a talent pool like that, where it is a very small studio by comparison to what's going on now, they were, like, literally, like, 12 people who made those games. That'd be
I know.
brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's my jam. That's the type of because the best games were stuff like id Software.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they kicked off. Blizzard when they
Blizzard,
started.
Bullfrog, right?
Bullfrog. Yeah,
Bullfrog!
absolutely.
I mean, I know that must sound strange to people who know the legend, the myth of Peter Molyneux now, but guys, in the '90s, in the early '90s, we swear he was God.
Absolutely.
He
Dungeon
was
Keeper.
fucking I mean,
Uh,
populous.
yeah.
Populous too. Just he could do no wrong. The man
hmm
was on fire. He reinvented what video games were.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the
You look at something like
Amiga,
Magic
Populous
Carpet.
2 might be the best game. It might be, like, the most competent, most coherent game
hmm
on the Amiga, you know?
It's weird. You say on the Amiga, and all I can hear is just a little jingle going on the
It's
Amiga.
Dave. Yes, it's
Yep,
Dave Bulmer. Yeah, of
yep.
course. On the
So
Amiga. I'm gonna grab him at one point, and I'm gonna get him to sit down and talk to me about the Amiga because we will have a chat.
absolutely,
I'm telling you, it will be a chat because I'm an Amiga
yeah.
kid too.
Hmm.
I remember that
Absolutely.
system. Bloody
Yeah,
hell,
it's great. It's great.
it
RoboCop,
was. Oh my god, it was such a good
RoboCop on the
system.
Amiga. Yeah.
Oh, I had it. Yeah,
Yep.
da 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 da
Mm.
da. That's so slow.
It was
Oh,
painfully slow, but you loved it
painful.
though.
Yeah, yeah, I did enjoy it, I must admit. I thought I had fun with that one.
Actually, tying it back into games again,
Mhm.
the Amiga point and click games
Yeah,
were just they're such a massive touchstone in my life.
yeah, I mean,
Harvester being, I
Harvester, oh my god, are you
yeah,
kidding?
I know
Jesus,
Harvester's not good. I'm well aware that Harvester's not good,
Jesus.
but I
Darkseid.
love it. Darkseid,
Did
that's
you used to
another
play
one.
Darkseid,
I
the
did.
Giga game? Yeah.
Yep.
That
I have
was,
one on Hammer Stream.
that must have been the first horror game I ever played, Darkseid.
I
Ever,
can, yeah.
ever.
I
Jesus
mean,
God.
outside of Splatterhouse, was there any horror games that came before it?
There were not many. The Amiga had a few more than most platforms because that was aimed
Mhm.
more at an adult audience, but there were not
Yeah,
many. There were things like, because we had Horror Soft, of course, on the Amiga, which was like
of course.
they literally a studio just up the road from me,
Mhm.
who adopted Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, as their
Yeah,
mascot, bizarrely.
yeah.
And they did some pretty good horror games, including the 2 Elvira games, which are much better than they have any right to be.
They're
And,
fantastic.
they were good fun. I mean, they're flawed, but they are good fun. And
Yes.
Waxworks, which is arguably their
Mm,
masterpiece.
aye. Who did,
Waxworks is very good.
who did Lure of the Temptress?
You
I'll have
know
to check
what?
that.
I'm not sure, but I
I'd
do
have to check that.
remember it. I do
Yeah,
remember it. That was a big title on the Amiga, that was.
that was huge. I loved Lure of the Temptress. It was
Yeah, that was a
one of those
very
games.
big title.
It was something that you just kind of got lost in for
Yeah.
hours, days. It was so well put together, so brilliantly done.
There's even an
I mean, what?
element of, like, like the Delphine Software games in this, Adam. You know,
Yeah,
the sort of Another World, which if
yeah.
you're American, it's, what do they call it in the US? It's,
Oh, I don't know. Hot dog
Out
sausages.
of This
Yeah.
World in the US, and Flashback, of course.
Yes. Yep.
Amazing
Both
game.
games
I
I
mean
played to death as a kid.
wow, they were marvels, weren't they? People, I mean,
Mm.
it's hard to explain to people now, but they were technical marvels.
Oh yeah.
Just never seen anything like them, and also the storytelling in them. You
It's
just didn't get that back then because games were so
once
limited, you just didn't really get that kind of storytelling.
once again, there's an economy of storytelling taking place in those games. They know how to tell a story through mood,
Oh,
through
visuals, and
yeah.
because there's no dialogue at all, obviously.
Nope.
No dialogue, nothing. It's all visual and all atmospheric, and, I mean,
Hmm.
it's stunning. It is absolutely stunning. I loved those games to bits.
Funnily enough, when I was writing, which bit was it? Hang on, I'm going to have to check now. I'll just pick up this book with my name on it. When I was writing up on the Black's Landing and all
Mhm.
the sort of different areas, which I hope the joke of level 404 being missing was a something you picked up on.
Ha! Yeah, very good.
But when I was writing all these bits out, like trying to create the images in my head of what I wanted these areas to look like and trying to get that
Mhm.
done across, I had the flashback soundtrack playing on YouTube
Oh, which is, I
because
mean, wow.
sometimes it's just occurred to me I should really make a playlist of all the stuff I listen to because that's going
Mm,
to get real eclectic.
yeah. And I can sort of see why, because like, the video games from that era are, like, their music is very redolent of this,
Yes,
I am actually now thinking of the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack from Quake.
absolutely. Yep, that
Of
was in there.
course. American
Yeah,
McGee's Alice even, there's an element of that?
there quite will be actually. I mean, I played a lot of American McGee's Alice.
Yeah, I loved
It's
that.
funny, isn't it? How through your life, you have these little moments and you have these elements of things, and you may not think about them in detail going
Mhm.
forward, but they're always there at the back
Yeah.
of your head and they come out in these different ways.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And it's
It is.
particularly fascinating when you go back to revisit them because they chime again, and then they
Hmm.
become more significant, you have a new experience of them. That's
Yes.
really fascinating, and they become more powerful to you because of that.
Hmm. Oh,
I I
absolutely.
I love that stuff. That happens a lot to me. I mean, it happens, like, when I come back to stuff, like, from childhood, yes, but also from university and stuff like that,
Yeah, yeah.
where the
Right.
context is different now, and suddenly it's this whole different thing, this whole different resonant thing. Last year, it was Shakespeare. I just I
All
went
right.
I went nuts. I read every Shakespeare play, reread every Shakespeare play, and watched as many adaptations as I could find last year for
Oh,
some reason. I don't know why, and I loved it. I just blasted my mind. This year, it's Dickens for some reason. I've read so much Dickens this year. It's unbelievable, and again, loads of adaptations. Very
Dickens is a
peculiar.
fascinating man because the historical characterization that we've given him does not match the actual person
No, it doesn't, and,
at all, and
the writing is
he's
amazing. I
such
mean,
an
he
angry
is
man.
he's very I mean, oh my god, you read Little Dorrit, and
Mhm.
you're like, "Oh my how did he get away with publishing this? How did he get away with publishing it?" Because it's so angry, it's
He got away
bitter.
with publishing it because he did it piecemeal, so nobody
Yes,
picked
he
up
did
what he was
this, of
actually
course.
doing.
It was a serialization, of course.
Yeah.
But, like, it attacks the classes that he's aiming it at.
Yeah.
His audience, he's attacking his own audience, his own society. It's brilliant. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. He just assaults notions of Victorian class structure and propriety and manners and all that
Well,
garbage. He just
he
assaults
calls out the
it.
hypocrisy of Victorian society, and it's
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing in this day and age to go back and see, and there are many people out there who will have wrote massive amount of essays,
Mm.
we're not covering new ground here at all.
No, 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 no.
But
This
you
this is
come
not news. This is not like
oh,
some
no,
brand
no.
revelation.
But I find it fascinating that we, especially through, like, secondary school, we are taught this certain idea of who Charles Dickens was and
Right.
why he wrote the stuff he did, this socially minded individual.
Mhm.
But they always miss out the fact that the man was fucking rageful.
Yes,
He was
and
angry at the
pretty
world around him.
goddamn revolutionary in his
Yeah.
writing, right? Pretty goddamn revolutionary. The stuff he dares to say about Victorian society and class structure. Um,
Mhm.
and it's interesting because, like, as he gained more success throughout his life through his work, he became part of that class structure and
Yes.
seems to be very conscious of it, like very
Yeah.
conscious of the fact.
Oh, he
Um,
was. Absolutely, he was. And I think he had a very weird love-hate relationship with his standing as he became more
mm,
successful.
clearly.
And that comes through in his work, that he gets to see more of the things that he despises in
Mhm.
people around him.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
his work.
Shakespeare has that too. I mean, like,
Oh, yeah.
Shakespeare was like he people don't get this about Shakespeare. He was a popular writer. He was a populist.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
also he was from kind of from nowhere. He was
Mhm.
nobody. I mean, it was Marlowe, wasn't it? It was Christopher Marlowe who called him an upstart crow.
Yes.
And it's like Shakespeare didn't give a shit
Love
because
that
his
term.
plays were doing gangbusters compared to Marlowe's, so
Oh,
he
yeah.
was like, "Fuck you," like, "I'm getting the asses on seats, mate."
I'm making a lot more money by selling
Yeah,
tickets for a lot less than yours.
yeah, absolutely. Um, but also, I mean, like, the intelligence, I mean, obviously the writing is magnificent. I mean, some of Shakespeare's work is some of my favorite ever. I mean, I love Othello. I think Othello is
Yeah.
beautiful. Um,
I'm
Julius
gonna be
Caesar's
very
awesome. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, really stunning. It should have been called Brutus, but really stunning piece of work.
I'm gonna be quite basic here, and Macbeth. It's always
Macbeth.
Macbeth for me. I
Macbeth is
love Macbeth.
probably my favorite. It's
Out,
probably my favorite.
out, brief candle. Life is
Yeah.
but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying
Signifying nothing.
nothing.
Yeah, beautiful. One of the best soliloquies in all of Shakespeare, right?
Absolutely. And the day that I managed to actually get on stage and play that part it is one of
Yeah.
the highlights of my life. I say that now as somebody who's married with a child and everything like that, shouldn't really be still the highlight of my life.
If you really want to be, like, condemned as being basic in Shakespeare circles, then there's real snobbery about Hamlet. I fucking love
Is there?
Hamlet. Yeah, there's a real snobbery about Hamlet. People, like, they declaim it as, like, the most populist of his plays and whatnot. I
Hmm.
friggin' love Hamlet. I think Hamlet's fantastic
Yeah, Hamlet's
myself. I think
great.
it's a beautiful piece of work. Um,
You see, there's a couple of Shakespeare I'm not a huge
Me
fan
too. I
of,
hate
but
Romeo and Juliet. I mean, I
well,
fucking loathe Romeo and Juliet. I think it's the
I have a
worst of his
reason.
plays.
I have a reason to despise, and I do mean fucking despise Romeo and Juliet. And oh, right. So you might remember in your last 2 years of secondary school, you
Mhm.
had mock exams,
Yes.
right? So I did a year of Romeo and Juliet. Then
What
we
are
had a
you
mock exam.
supposed to fucking write about Romeo and Juliet?
No,
What
they
are you
was
supposed to fucking write? It's like it's such a basic play. It's such a, like, surface level play, right, compared to his other stuff.
Oh man, hold on to that thought. Hold on to the thought. What can you write about Romeo and Juliet? Hold on to that thought with tight, tight hands. So I did a year Romeo and Juliet, did mock exams. I did so well in my mock exams, I then got bumped to the top set,
Mhm, mhm.
where we did Romeo and Juliet for a year.
Oh, for a year. Jesus.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we kind of like went back into it, in and out, in and out. So I've already
Mhm.
done all this, so right, okay. But I'm in top set now, so I have to like get more detail and have to rewrite
Yeah.
it. So I had to write more stuff on Romeo and Juliet. I then went off to college and did
Mhm.
A level English and A level language,
Right.
literature and language. Right? First year English A level language, Romeo and
Romeo and Juliet.
Juliet. Second
Jesus.
year,
Jesus.
second year literature, Romeo and Juliet. Four
Oh
fucking
my
years.
god.
4 fucking years. I had to
How
deal with Romeo and Juliet.
Because it's like it's not even like most of his other plays where there are, like, deeper resonances and there are, like, things you can really delve into. It's a
No,
very surface level play, you know?
yeah. It just, for whatever reason, I got haunted by
Mm,
Romeo and Juliet. I've seen the Americanized Romeo and Juliet once.
yeah.
It might be a good film. I don't
Mhm.
know,
I
because the entire time I was watching it with an ex-girlfriend at the time.
Mhm.
Um, no, she wasn't an ex-girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
That was a weird way of putting it. Uh, watching it at the time with an ex-girlfriend. Um, all I could think of at the time was, I fucking hate you.
Yeah.
I hate Romeo and
It's
Juliet so
just
much.
yeah. You
I despise everything about it.
you're given that or you're given something like Macbeth or Hamlet or Julius Caesar or even like
Give
let's go
me
for another romance, Taming of the Shrew.
I was
Fucking
gonna say, give me
hilarious.
Taming of the Shrew. Taming of the Shrew's
Fucking
great.
hilarious. I mean, one of
Yeah.
the funniest plays he ever wrote, for one thing.
Mhm. It's funnier than
Really
Midsummer Night's Dream by a
god
country mile.
yeah, it's so goddamn funny. Taming of the Shrew kills me. It is
Mhm.
genuinely funny. Bawdy, oh my god, the double entendres in The Taming of the
Yes.
Shrew, which are not really, I mean, like, they're very clear, you know? Um,
Single entendres, yeah.
yeah, they may as well be single entendres, yeah. So funny. I mean, like, my god, the Oliver Reed film
Mhm.
of that,
Yeah.
just
That's
brilliant, just
man.
brilliant. Richard III, I mean, like,
Mhm.
wow. Wow!
The Ian McKellen version of Richard III that was,
Mm.
was it set during World War One? It's been a while
Hmm?
since I watched it. It's something like that.
Oh my god, I
There's
haven't
a
seen it for a long time, but he's basically a Nazi. He
yes.
plays it as a Na it's very it's sort of vaguely World War II, so it's like he's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Nazi effectively, you know?
Yeah, it's such an amazingly powerful rendition of that play that
Yeah, it's
uh,
very good.
watched
It's
it a couple of
very,
times.
very good.
I could very easily talk about Shakespeare for hours on end. It's
Yeah, me
ridiculous.
too. I'll be honest. I mean, it is one of those things. Not to get too sort of like high and mighty about it, but you kind of need to understand Shakespeare to a certain degree to get literature in England. In if
Yeah.
you kind of do because
Well,
he reshaped the whole language, right? I mean, like how have you ever seen those lists of phrases and idioms and terms that
mhm,
all come from Shakespeare? He
absolutely. Yeah.
started them. It's like, oh my God, Jesus.
One of my favorite things about Shakespeare is the way he punches up.
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah,
there's very little.
he's
Oh yeah.
always going after power. He's
Yes.
always going after power. I mean, it's very difficult at times to determine what his position is on things because he had to be very careful. I mean, he was
Of
from
course.
a Catholic family at a
Hmm.
time when being Catholic could get your head sneaked off,
Yeah.
very easily. So, you know, it's hard to tell sometimes what his positioning is. I mean, a classic on that is The Merchant of Venice, you know?
Hmm.
Is it an anti-Semitic play? Yes, after a sense, yeah, it is because Shylock is a bastard and he's but in the midst of that, you have that amazing speech. Hath
Hmm.
not a Jew eye, hath not a Jew's senses and affection. It's utterly brilliant where he spells out the hypocrisy of anti-Semitism, you know?
Yeah.
So it is sometimes difficult to determine what his positions on certain things are. Um, but by and large, he's the equivalent of a progressive in his era,
Yeah. Oh,
you know?
absolutely. He hid. I think he hid a lot of stuff within words. So he would
Mm.
use a forest of words to hide the kernel of the truth that what he was actually getting at.
Oh, yeah, and there are
And
definitely
it's
certain audiences that he's sort of
oh
speaking
yes,
to, in
yeah.
his plays, in a very coded fashion, you know?
Hmm.
And one
Because
of
he
one
knew the
one
people that were going to see it. So
exactly, one subset of which were Catholics, he was actually
yeah.
talking to Catholics of the era. Um, but I mean, really, his real project is just it's the love of language. It's just the love of language
Yes.
and entertainment, right? I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
had like these the style of the era, like your London play of the era was Christopher Marlowe, which by the way, I love Marlowe. I love Faust. I love his
Hmm.
version of Faust. It's brilliant. But it is this really dour, dark, weighty, no humor whatsoever.
It
Um
can be suffocating. Yes.
yeah. Whereas Shakespeare, it's all like it's huge. There's battles and there's crazy. I mean, you look at stuff like Macbeth. It's a fucking bloodbath.
Hmm.
By the end, there's like
Oh
corpses everywhere.
yes.
There's corpses all over the friggin' Julius Caesar has a friggin' war in it.
Hmm.
Has an
Yep.
actual honest
Full
to
blown war.
God war in it.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus God, you know.
I don't know why it's just reminded me, but I found out recently why ninjas wear black in media. Don't worry, this is connected to plays. I'm not
Okay.
going off on a weird tangent. Um, and it's because in sort of 1600s or so,
Mhm.
the people in the background of plays would be all dressed in black to move
Yes,
things around
that's
so that
right,
nobody would
yeah.
see them, right? Until at one single play, why one of the people who was dressed in black suddenly leaned forward with a stage knife and stabbed the main character,
Ah,
right? And
interesting.
so that person came out of the shadows, assassinated somebody, melded
Mhm.
back in again, using the language that was already pre-existing. And that's where the entire thing of ninjas wearing complete, like nothing but
Oh,
darkest midnight
interesting.
black is always come from.
Isn't it funny
And
how
that,
that happens, right? It's like,
yeah, love it.
the way we think of as how pirates talk, in that sort of
Yes,
like, that very
it's
class
super
it's from a
exaggerated
Disney film.
Cornish.
It's from
Yes,
1930s Disney film. That's
yeah,
that's where it comes from. You
yeah,
know, pirates would have spoken with all sorts of languages, like accents, because they would have come from all over the frigging place. In fact, pirate captains were almost universally ex-naval officers, so they would have
correct.
been
Yeah,
gentry. They would have been
Yeah.
educated. They would have spoken with received English. So,
Hmm.
you know, at least the English pirates would have. So, yeah, it's bizarre, right?
My favorite one. I know we're getting off the weeds here.
Yeah.
My favorite one is why rabbits love carrots.
Oh, now that's
Uh,
interesting. I don't know this one.
It's Bugs Bunny's fault.
Is it Bugs Bunny, yeah?
Yeah. So
Friggin'
Bugs
brilliant.
Bunny was imitating an actor
Mhm,
from the 1930s he's an actor that I cannot remember the name of. He's
mhm.
done nothing that sticks in my brain,
Yeah.
but he was very famous for a short period of time, and
Uh-huh.
Bugs Bunny was mimicking him by eating a carrot.
Brilliant.
So
Absolutely
the entire
brilliant.
idea rabbits eat carrots comes from Bugs Bunny because Bugs Bunny was imitating an actor of the 30s.
Fantastic. Love it.
It's
Love
amazing,
it.
isn't it?
Love it. That is
But
fabulous.
it ties back into what you were saying before about Ghostwatch,
Mhm.
the relationship that we have with
With media,
moving
right?
pictures. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's we take from it the thing that is directly in front of us at the time
Mhm.
without
And if it
any
happens
real
to
thought
become an
about,
idiom, you know, if it
yeah,
happens to, like, absorb into culture, you know,
yeah,
things like Catch-22, like Room 101, and all of that stuff, you know, these
yeah,
ideas, these concepts. Um, yeah, it's I mean, that is endlessly fascinating, like the fluidity and the organic nature of language.
yeah, yeah. It's the human experience is a constantly evolving one that
Mhm,
changes every 3 years,
mhm.
give or take, because new things rise to the fore,
Well, new
and
contexts change
yeah,
everything, don't they? They just
yeah, and
change
the
everything.
yeah the environment around you changes, and as a result, your way of describing the environment changes, and that then informs the language that you use to
Mhm.
describe the environment around you.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean, we
it's a
are in
constant.
I mean, it's fascinating. We're in one of those periods of flux now, and there are gonna
Mhm.
be new idioms born from this, you know?
They've been happening for years. There's a load of things coming up. If you are below the age of 20, you are using a lot of language that is basically Clockwork Orange speak to me. I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cannot follow because I'm not under the age of 20, and I
Right,
don't have
right.
the environment that I exist in isn't the same as what they exist in.
Uh-huh.
The 20 years that they've had is very different from the last 20 years I've
Yeah,
had. Yes, well, yes.
yeah,
Um,
Jesus. I mean, you know,
if you were born in
um
1997, you are now old enough to do all the adult things.
mhm.
That's a 1997. That was my year of getting out into the world.
Yeah,
Yeah, so to me, it's such a massive jump, and the world has changed so much in that time that I don't have a touchstone for what a lot of these younger people are saying. That's
right.
not to say that it doesn't make any sense
No,
to
no, no,
them.
it's
It is
just
their
that
life.
it's the same for us, wasn't it? You know, it's the same for us when we were kids, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
the
cowabunga,
whole
dude.
yeah, yeah, all of this whole nonsense stuff
Yeah,
that influence popular culture in a really profound way. I mean, like, the '80s and the '90s was just the slang was everywhere. Oh my
absolutely. Yeah,
god, the slang of the '80s and the '90s was just you could I mean, it's a whole other language. A
it is in a lot
whole
of ways.
language. And then, of course, you get those the new that explosion of new context provided by technology in the late '90s with things like the internet and computers and computer
Yeah.
culture. And suddenly, I mean, like, it's a whole other world. It's another reality, right?
Mhm. I still think that saying "lol" in a real life setting is a crime punishable by hanging, but that's just me.
Yeah, just laugh, right? It's a bit
You
like that it's
just
like
laugh.
that friend who just says, "Oh, that's so funny." Is it?
Yeah,
Fucking laugh
yeah.
then. You know?
Either laugh or I'm going to put this knife in your guts.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, that's so funny. Is it?
Just laugh. Get right in someone's face. Laugh, you bastard. Get real
Yeah.
weird about it.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's always happened. I mean, like, there's stuff like,
Yeah, of course it
there's
has. Yeah.
Polari, there's Polari, there's the queer speak, right?
Hmm. Absolutely.
There's different ethnic cultural speak, there's all sorts of stuff out there.
Yeah. If you
It's
ever want to lose a few hours, just look at the constantly evolving experience that is pigeon.
Pigeon, oh my god,
Pigeon
yeah.
is
Oh, shit.
genuinely
Just
fascinating to
brilliant,
learn.
brilliant stuff,
Yeah,
and it sounds amazing.
it does. It
It
sounds so
sounds
good.
amazing. Um, But yeah, I mean, like, I like it when stuff from those niche languages filters into popular parlance. So
Mhm.
the amount of people who use Polari and don't know it, unbelievable,
Yep. Yep.
unbelievable. NAF is
Yes.
Polari.
Yep. That's
It's an acronym actually, and you can work it
mhm.
out. If you think that it was used in gay culture, you can work
Mhm.
out what it means.
Yep. And
Not
funnily enough,
available for, yeah.
relationships.
Oh, he's NAF,
Uh,
darling. He's NAF. That's what it would have been.
and funnily enough, that ended up being a clothing brand for a few years in Britain, about 96 to 98.
Awesome. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they would have known, and that would have been part of the marketing, right? Part of the draw, yeah? Of
Oh, trust me, they knew.
course they knew. Of course they
Yeah, it
knew.
was yeah, huge in
Quite clever.
the yeah, it was a huge clothing brand in the sort of rave nightclubs of the late
Mhm,
90s, mid
mhm.
to late 90s.
Which
So
again makes enormous sense because those
yeah,
cultures
exactly.
were sort of predominated by queer culture, right?
Yeah, it was synonymous, yeah, before sort of rave culture turned into like that techno and jungle
Mm.
culture and went off and became something very, very strange.
Yeah, different
Yeah,
directions, right?
actually, the queer culture and the dance culture were huge. Like they're massively intertwined.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's just I mean, I find all that fascinating, you know? And it's the people I mean, the people who have notions who have no idea, who think that these things are static and should be static. Have
Yeah,
notions of what English is, like, as a language. It's like you have no notion whatsoever. It is
no, no.
not an established thing. It has never been an established thing. It's never been monolithic.
There's always the concept, isn't there, that if you travel back in time to the Middle Ages,
Oh, you wouldn't
nobody would
understand a
understand.
fucking
Yeah,
word.
I
You would
actually take that slightly further. If
Yeah.
you travelled back 50 years from
Mm,
2025 and you went back even more than 50 years, you went back to the 1940s,
yeah.
people would look at you as if you'd grown an extra head,
Oh,
not
yes.
just from the words you're using, but in the manner in which you're
Oh,
delivering them.
yeah, absolutely. The structure of sentences has changed. The idioms you
Mhm.
use will have changed profoundly. I mean, could you imagine going back to that era as we are working class people talking as we do now?
Yeah.
You would.
It-
There's no way. There's no
no.
way. You would. They would assume that you were a toff. They would
Yeah.
assume we were educated, that we were like rich and educated and from, you know,
Yeah.
upper stratas. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
they absolutely would.
And that, yeah, couldn't be further from the truth.
No, I'm very I mean, it's I'm very proudly working class actually,
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
it's something I hold on to.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Absolutely it
Absolutely.
is.
I always
Just
remember one of my friends saying to me, "Well, care it's a middle class job, isn't it?" It's like,
no, it is not.
no, absolutely not.
How?
No,
How?
it's,
By what standards is care it shouldn't be. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, again, I identify actively as working class, and I think it's brilliant. I actually
mm,
I like the friction and the frisson of being working class and educated and and knowing stuff and being interested in stuff that our betters would not allow us to have.
yeah, yeah,
There's a revolutionary element to that, which I really, really like. Um,
absolutely. I
but
mean, I always remember growing up. One of the things that my dad always said to us: "It is your choice what you decide to learn,"
yeah,
and
absolutely.
it is 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have that ability, and especially since the rise of the internet, the entire
Mm.
depository of human knowledge is at your
It's just
fingertips.
there.
Stop looking at TikTok.
It's literally there. It's just,
Yeah,
you know, for how much longer? Who knows? Who knows, right? Um,
that's why I'm downloading Wikipedia right now.
yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. I would advise everyone, if you're interested in something, download it now. Put it
Yes.
onto a hard drive somewhere. Because there may come a time when we have to resurrect the internet after it's been destroyed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, New Handletown is incoming, unfortunately.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, that might be too obtuse a reference. I apologize.
Well,
If you
Adam, This
Google New Handletown, and you'll
Yeah,
see.
go and Google that. This has been great. This has been a really lovely chat, and it's been great, getting to talk to you about your work, actually. But
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
I would really like to write something in this setting. I would. It's fun. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple of things that I've got on my plate at the moment
Mhm.
where I want to get some PDFs out.
Yeah.
'Cause I want more random tables.
Mhm.
Yeah. So narrative put to one side. I love random tables. Random
Ha!
tables are just one of
Well,
those
again,
things
you're
that I
showing
love
your
to get.
influence there, aren't you?
Oh,
You
absolutely.
you came
Absolutely.
into these kinds of games in the era when they were so vogue, right?
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
so vogue. Literally die 100 tables.
hmm
Bloody
Oh,
Nora.
I'm tempted to really go for a book that is a D1000.
Bloody hell. The real, like, realms of chaos shit, yeah?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We'll see. But I've got other ideas as well. So I don't know if I'm going to just get the PDFs out for this and then move on to the next one because I've got
Mhm.
um, should I go into? Yeah, I'll give kind of an idea. I've got a first person cyberpunk horror book which I've been
Mm?
working on, which is going to purposefully use the language of a fighting fantasy, a choose your own adventure book.
Oh,
It's not a choose
okay.
your own, it's not a choose your own adventure, but it is using the language
It's sort of written in
that
the
you find.
style of, yeah.
Yes, um,
Interesting.
for
Interesting.
a couple of different reasons,
Okay.
um, and I intend to have a lot of Amiga era pixel art around it.
Oh, fun. Fun, fun, fun. Because
So
I loved that in the last book. I loved that
yeah,
stuff. It was brilliant.
that's going. I'm going to work on getting that out as a full book. If I
That
can, I would like that out for Halloween, but we'll see.
Oh, great.
hmm Um, but the next real big thing I want to do, so I've got two more of these books I want to
Mhm.
do, but the reason I'm doing all of these is the end game is something called Wild Growth.
Wild
Which,
growth, okay.
Wild Growth, the entire concept, I wrote this. It's where this journey begins.
Mhm.
In 2020, lockdown happens, and stuff's happening. I've got the son's just been born. My dad's just become ill, and
Mhm.
I needed something to try and just pour my brain into in order to
Yeah,
keep myself sane because we
of
were all
course.
locked in and all this stuff's happening around me. It's like, oh god, too much.
Mhm.
And so I started writing a idea of what if the Warhammer Old World didn't explode.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and that was my original idea. Was I was going to write a um, using the Age of Sigmar rules, but it was all going to be what happened after the end times in Warhammer.
Bloody hell, the
Uh,
aftermath of that.
yeah, yeah, the
Jeez.
world didn't explode, but it was
But it
post-apocalyptic.
was
What does
crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Winds of
it's a
magic going wild, etcetera.
exactly. So the ruins of Altdorf become a setting, all that type of thing.
Interesting, like an alternative future, yeah?
Yeah. Uh, then after a little while, I started having other ideas and other concepts, and then I was watching Nausicaa with my wife one
Oh,
night
one of the
because
best Studio Ghiblis.
it's that film is like a warm hug for me. It
So good.
I'd had a couple of bad days, and I just needed something to soak my brain into. So
Mhm,
we watched Nausicaa, and I was looking at the toxic jungle, and I went,
mhm, mhm.
fungal jungle apocalypse would be really cool, wouldn't
That
it?
would be fun, yeah.
All right. So how do I take that and put that into a fantasy setting? So now I've got a entire world which is set in the aftermath of a fungal apocalyptic. Um, w- yeah, basically, something's happened, and
Uh,
it's not like Understar's Desolate where it's mystery. This thing gets explained. Big meteorite come down, and there's an eldritch abomination type creature on the
course.
meteorite,
Yes.
and it's mutated everything around it. So these trees are now fungally and
Mhm.
crooked, and
Oh,
they're all like
it's the color out of space, yeah?
yeah, pretty much yeah. Um, so there's like elements like the trees will chase people.
Uh-huh.
So not that the trees will unroot, the trees will fire spores, and then another tree will grow, and then that fire spores,
Ah,
and so you
cool.
get these trees trying to like grow in a way to cut you off. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, that's an idea. So
Interesting, yeah.
wrote all this out, and that's my end game. It's when I feel I'm at a point where I can get that down,
Uh-huh.
that's going to be the big thing that I do.
Brilliant.
Um,
Wow. Well,
but
once again, I mean, like, let me know. We'll chat about it happily.
absolutely, absolutely. But I think I'm going to focus on getting Stars Desolate done. I think
Mhm,
2 or 3 years of just
mhm.
Stars Desolate with
Yeah.
some other bits and
Yeah, yeah,
bobs, and
yeah.
then
It's got real legs, I think. It's got real legs,
oh
this one.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the rule set could do with a bit of tweaking here
Mhm.
and there, I think. But yeah, people seem to enjoy it, so yay! It's not shit. Woohoo!
Brilliant.
I
Well,
succeeded.
guys, there will be links below, not only to this, but to Adam's last book as well, and to the Fluff and Hammer, etc., down below. Um,
I hope you enjoyed me and didn't think I was annoying.
as for myself, same as usual. You can find me knocking about here on Exaggerated Elegy or Our Lives in Horror, because I'm going to also upload this to that channel, Adam,
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
because I think it fits really well. You can find links to all of my published work over at strangeplaygrounds.com. And if you go to Amazon and type in George Daniel Lee, you'll find all of my short story collections and all of the various anthologies I've been involved with. Ginger Nuts of Horror, you'll find my ongoing non-fiction, My Life in Horror. And as per usual, Arrow Films, the Quartet of Torment UHD and Blu-ray set of Hellraiser. You'll find myself and my colleague Kit Power on the Hellbound disc on the featurette Hell is What They Wanted. I think that's it for me. Adam, thank you so, so much. This was great. This was a really,
Thank
really
you.
good, fun chat. No, my pleasure. My pleasure. And again, guys, links to these books down below. Until next time, bye bye.
Bye.